Alright, so this video has been 3 years in the making, but I'm here today to show you guys my self-obtained Premier Ball Expanded Living Dex. This is a project that started 3 years ago, and yeah, let's get into it. So you can see here that you have all of the Pokemon. So when I say self-obtained, when possible, every single one of these Pokemon have my original trainer, my trainer name on them, which would be static. They're all in Premier Balls when possible. There are some exceptions. Such as like Silvally and Null. Those can't be in Premier Balls, and all of those exceptions will be in the description below. If you found a mistake, comment it and let me know, and I'll fix it. And anyway, these are all in Premier Balls, and we'll start at the beginning and we'll go through and kind of talk about some of the more notable ones as we go through. But yeah, it's an expanded living dex, so every form of every Pokemon, all in Premier Balls, all with my trainer name. So let's dive in and take a look. You'll see there up in the top left corner is the Premier Ball, and then down at the bottom you'll see my OT. This was done over several games, so a lot of these ID numbers would be different, but that's okay. And we'll just kind of go through. You see we got some Alolan forms in here. Now these are the event Pikachus. These cannot be in anything other than Pokeballs. So they will not have my OT and they will not be in Premier Balls. But I have them all. Also, none of these have nicknames, so it's very clear who and what they are. And while we're kind of going through here, I'll kind of tell the tale of kind of how I got started. So back when Sun and Moon came out, my best friend, he's I don't know if he still is, but at the time he was really into Premier Balls. And he sent me a message one day and he's like, did you know that you can get Premier Balls for basically free after you get far enough into the game? And I was like, no. And he told me how, and he's like, I bet you can't get 999 Premier Balls. And of course, me being who I am, I'm like, yeah, I can. And so I did. And I don't remember if it was in Sun and Moon or Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, but you could get a level like 7 or 8 Salamence from SOS, like real early in the game. And he's like, I bet let's have a race to see who will get it, in Premier Ball. And I won the race. I got it. I think he gave up, actually. And then the natural progression of that was, I bet you won't complete the Pokédex, the Alola Pokédex, all in Premier Balls. And so I did. But at that point, I had the first 6 generations already complete as a living dex. And then I had the Alola Pokédex, Gen 7, just hanging around as just Premier Balls. And so I had, 1 generation out of 7 that was just all Premier Balls. And that bugged me. And I'm sure you can tell where this is going next. So that is what started the quest to to do this, and it took me, by the time I got to the point where I was really going for it, it took about 2 years. Legendaries, everything. I basically had to make 2 living dexes. Mew cannot be in anything other than a Premier Ball, or I'm sorry, Cherish Ball. We'll kind of speed up a little bit. You guys can hit the pause button and look at any of them that you'd like. We're just gonna speed up a little here. Obviously, the Pokemon are in order of generation of release. So, like, Rhyperior, for instance, would not be grouped with Rhydon. It was released much later and would be with its generation. This right here took me forever. The unknowns, once I got access to the unknowns, it went pretty quickly. But the only way to get access to the unknowns, other than Heart Gold and Soul Silver, is Heart Gold and Soul Silver and the Serebii Islands and Fire Red Leaf Green, is to get access to one particular Mirage Island on Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. And that was a pain, getting the access to that Mirage Island. But like I said, once I got access to it, it wasn't a big deal. We're coming up on the end of Generation 2. Celebi obviously cannot be obtained in anything other than a luxury ball. If you have the if I were to use the Pokemon Bank event, or a regular Pokeball if you caught it in the virtual console of Gold, Silver, and Crystal. You can catch it whenever you wanted, but when you traded it over, it reverted to a Pokeball. So the choices was either a Pokeball, a Cherish Ball, or a Luxury Ball. And unpopular opinion, I like Cherish Ball more. So we're coming up on a really interesting one here. Alright, so Shedinja. Shedinja is a really weird one, because from Generation 4 and onward, Shedinja automatically occupies a Pokeball from your inventory, I believe, when you evolve it, when you evolve a Nincada. But in Gen 3, when you evolve a Nincada, whatever ball the Nincada is in, the Shedinja will be in. So I had to evolve a Nincada in Generation 3 and then trade it all the way up. Trade the Shedinja all the way up in order to get a Shedinja in a Premier Ball. That is the only way to get it in a Premier Ball. So that was kind of neat. Just trucking right along. You'll see all the numbers. The numbers at the top, that took a little while. Going through and making sure all of these were in the correct order by Pokédex number, and making sure that the boxes were labeled properly, and making sure everything was actually in a Premier Ball, and that everything impossible would have my trainer name. That all took a little bit of time, but no, I feel like it's worth it. I'm really sad that I can't trade these up and use these in the 8th generation. I can only use part of them, unfortunately. But I still think it's a great accomplishment. I'm pretty proud of it. Not many people have this. I don't know that anybody does. That doesn't mean that they don't exist, but I don't know of anybody that has a Premier Ball Living Dex with every form possible that you can store on Bank. If you have one, drop it in the comments. Let me know. I'd love to see it. So Jirachi. We'll talk about the Oxys in a second, but Jirachi obviously can't be in anything other than a Cherish Ball. You might be able to get it in a Pokeball. I think Wishmaker Jirachi is in a Pokeball. Not totally sure on that, but it can't be in a Premier Ball, I know that. So let's talk about Deoxys. Deoxys, the rule was that Pokemon has to be in a Premier Ball when possible. And Deoxys can be in a Premier Ball. You just have to complete Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire and the Delta episode in order to catch it in a Premier Ball. And because it needed to have my trainer name, I played through Omega Ruby 4 times in its entirety in order to catch 4 Deoxys for each of its forms. That, let me tell you, I know the dungeons of Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, Ruby Sapphire like the back of my freaking hand. I think I've played through that generation more than any other generation ever at this point. Simply so I could get 4 Deoxys. It was nuts. Now we're into the 4th generation, and I don't think there's anything really notable as far as the 4th generation goes. I ran into a bit of an issue with some evolution stones, shiny stones particularly. Shout out to my best friend. He came through clutch with a couple of those for me, so that I didn't have to mess too much with mining in Generation 7, the Pokepelago. Another thing I'd like to talk about too is that it's pretty common knowledge that different genders will have minor sprite changes. I did not take any of those into account. However, I did take into account major sprite changes. So, for instance, well, you can't see it on Bank, but if you look at it on games, female and male Hippowdons have major sprite differences. You just can't see them on Bank. So anything that has a major sprite difference, I have both. So another example would be like Sawsbuck and I'm having a hard time remembering its first form, or Gastrodon and Shellos. Those all I count those as forms, and so I have those on here as well. We're closing up to the end of 4th generation. See, we have all the Rotoms. Phione and Manaphy obviously can't be in anything other than Premier Balls. Darkrai, okay, so Darkrai and Shaymin, you could catch those in Premier Balls. In Generation 4, you had it in Platinum, you had access to Membership Key and Oak's Letter, which you had access to those Pokemon. You can catch them with whatever ball you wanted. However, you no longer have access to those items legally. And so I had to go with Cherish Ball forms of these. These technically you can have in Premier Balls. I just don't have them, and I no longer have I can no longer get access to them legally, so I opted to just use Cherish Balls. Arceus was available through a different event, I believe, that is also no longer accessible. Same with Victini. And there's another one. I don't remember there's 5 that you can get access to. And have 5 of the mythicals that you can have in Premier Balls. They'll be in the description, of course. Everything that I know of that kind of counts as an exception should be accounted for in there. Shout out to Bulbapedia and Serebii for the information that I'll be using. Those have been super, super big helps. In particular, Serebii and the Poke-Earth. By the time I was done with this, I was tired of SOS encounters. SOS encounters and Horde encounters. Let me tell you. But if it weren't for Poke-Earth, I'd still be doing this probably. So, shout out to Joe Merrick. We're just kind of booking right along through Gen 5. Gen 5, I think, is the biggest generation of Pokemon since the first generation. It has the most. Here you go. See, like that's another major sprite changes. The blue and the red Basculin. The Zen form of Darmanitan is a battle form, so you can't store it on Pokebank. Same goes with all the Megas. You can't store those on Pokebank either. Just going through. So here's an interesting. So Tortuga and Caracosta you could get in Premier Balls, but Archen and Archeops you could not. For some reason, Tortuga and Caracosta, well, Tortuga was a Dream Ball. You could get in the Dream World, I think, but Archen you could not. So you can't get Archen and Archeops in Premier Balls, not legally anyway. So that was kind of interesting. So basically the method here is Deerling, that was its name. So basically the method here was I primarily used Generation 6 and the PAL Parks. I have access to every Pokemon in PAL Park. I was one of those people that did that when it first came out. So I have access to every Pokemon in PAL Park. Friend Safari, sorry. And so a large portion of these Pokemon I got out of Friend Safari. A good handful were available on routes in X and Y, and the remainder were caught in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. And about of those available in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, about 60% I'd say were available in the Mirage Islands, and the rest were available just in routes and stuff like that. Pretty easy to catch those. Thundurus was a bit of a pain because I had used up one of my... Yeah, I had access to 2 Thunduruses, but I think I used one up or something. I didn't have 2 available in Premier Balls. Maybe I didn't catch them both in Premier Balls or something, but I had access to 2 of them, and I couldn't find the other one, so I had to play through a black. Right, play through to get Thundurus. Or was it white? Whichever one gives you Thundurus. So that I could have the Landorus forms. In Pokebank, Kyurem, the fusions with Zekrom and those, you can't store them on Pokebank, so those don't count. Keldeo, both of Keldeo's forms can be stored on Pokebank, so I have both of them. Meloetta, its form is a battle form, can't be stored on Pokebank. And Genesect, its forms are item-based. Same with Arceus, so those cannot be stored on Pokebank either, so they're not included. Now we're into Generation 6, and you have Ash's Greninja, which I consider different enough to warrant a form. And now we're coming up to the Vivillons. Let me tell you, it took me damn near 6 months, I think, to get all the Vivillons I needed. Shout out to Reddit, r Vivillon. Great community if you need Vivillons. Basically, I had to get people in other countries or with other DSs to trade me eggs of the necessary patterns and then hatch them in my game so that they would have my trainer name but their pattern, because the pattern is determined when the egg is created, but the original trainer is assigned when it hatches. So I had to trade for eggs for all of these, but I did it. And yeah, all in Premier Balls. It's crazy. Well, except the 2 events. Those are in Pokeballs. One is in Pokeball and one's in a Cherish Ball. But you have them all right there. That was probably the hardest part of this whole thing, is getting all the Vivillons. I'd say it was even harder than getting the Ultra Beasts in Premier Balls, and more difficult than getting the all the different legendaries from the wormholes in Premier Balls. Furfrou, it's different. Haircuts can't be stored on Pokémon Bank. So I got really good at wormhole hunting, at wormholes, in the process of doing this, which I ain't mad about it. Let's see. You can't see it, but these are all 4 different sizes of Pumpkaboos and all 4 different sizes of Gorgeists. Like I said, you can't see it on Pokebank, but they're there. The battle form of Zygarde, battle form, can't be stored on Pokebank. Diancie, Hoopa, Volcanion, all only available in Cherish Balls. And now on to Generation 7, the generation that started it all. All in Premier Balls. And you have all 3 forms of Lycanroc. All the different colors of Minior. All the Tapus. Cosmog and Cosmoem, not available in anything other than Pokeballs, but Solgaleo and Lunala, you can. Magerna, Marshadow, Poipole, Naganadel, not available, and Zeraora, not available. And that's it. So there it is, guys. My expanded Premier Ball Living Dex, self-obtained. Like I said, I don't know of any other one like mine. It may be the only one in existence. If you have one or know of somebody that has one, drop it in the comments. Let me know. I'd love to hear about it. But until further notice, I think I've got the only Premier Ball expanded Living Dex in existence right now. So I think that's kind of cool. But yeah, I enjoyed showing it to you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know that it was about 20 so minutes of me just flipping through, but wanted there to be proof. So anyway, if you enjoyed the video, like it. If you feel so inclined, subscribe to my YouTube. This is the only video on it right now, but I'll be planning. I stream on Twitch. I can include that in the description as well if you want to check me out. But I'll be uploading, trying to anyway, some content to YouTube from my streaming. So anyway, hope to hear from you guys in the comments. Hope to see you guys in the channel next time I stream. And yeah, see you guys next time. Later.